All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I see everyone trickling right on in. Just some quick housekeeping before we get started. So please note that this is a Zoom webinar, so it is being recorded. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We will be trying to answer some as we go, some at the end, but we will do our best to make sure all of your questions get answered from today's presentation. But without further ado, you're not here to listen to me. So Nicolina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Really excited to get a chance to speak about one of my favorite topics and really where I've spent the majority of my career, people analytics. So what we'll go through today is a little bit of a deep dive into HR's secret weapon and demystifying really what is people analytics. So just a little bit about me before we get started. I am right now the Director of Professional Services at PeopleInsight by HireRoad. So I manage a team of analysts who help our customers leverage their data that they're collecting. We create dashboards and content for them that then they share within their organizations. I did spend several years in the business analyst role, so I have been one of them, and I have worked with several HR and TA professionals like yourselves to really identify what are their analytics reporting goals and needs, and really tailoring dashboards and content to align with that. So I'm really excited today to talk you through some key things so that you too can get started with people analytics and you can start to gain real value from the data that you're most definitely already collecting. In terms of agenda, what we'll do today is we'll go through the basics. We'll cover, what is people analytics exactly, why it matters for HR leaders, and we'll take you through some simple steps to get going quickly and make impact probably sooner than you might think is possible. So why does HR need a secret weapon, especially in today's data-driven world? So number one, the reason being there is absolutely increased pressure to show strategic value, both in terms of your actions and the ROI of anything you're implementing within your organization. So the financial impact of making better decisions gives you better credibility within the rest of the business and has you really speaking the same language as a lot of other functions within your organization. Also, the questions are getting harder. You likely have a mountain of data. You're probably working with multiple systems in an HR tech stack, and oftentimes very few of them talk to each other, if at all. They're all huge sources of information, and if we're not extracting value from that data, it's really a missed opportunity to really understand your recruitment pipeline or an overall picture of quality of hire on the HR side. So what People Analytics does is it really gives you a competitive edge, which allows you to combine, slice and dice your data and view it in a way that then tells a compelling story that you can share throughout your organization. HR leaders, they need to use this as a tool to get ahead and have their voice heard in a way that really resonates with the rest of the business. And what People Analytics will do as well will give you the ability to quantify. So the more we can quantify those gut feelings or the sentiments we're hearing through conversation, anecdotal evidence, the more we're able to really quantify that, then we're able to build trust with leadership and stakeholders. So it's one thing to say that you think some groups are seeing a lot of new hires leaving, but using dollar amounts and being able to say, reducing the turnover rate of new hires by 2% actually saved us, $400K in hiring efforts. That has a lot more impact than just the initial anecdotal story. So supporting our stories with data-driven facts is where we want to kind of shift our focus and take that direction. So what is people analytics? It's probably simpler than you think. So just basic definition here. It's using HR data to drive better and smarter decisions. So it's often talked about, and there's certainly a lot of different trending topics surfacing in this realm. But at the end of the day, That's what we're doing. We're taking the data you have from your systems and using it to actually understand what's happening in your organization. And then the next step is making decisions off of the data. And like I mentioned before, not a gut instinct or what you may have done in the past. So we see so many use cases, levels of analysis, but really the world is your oyster. What we recommend is starting with the data you already have and just make sure you're looking at it in a way that answers key business questions. And if you don't have data to get started, it's really important to start thinking about what do you need to collect in order to then make your case or tell your story. We have kind of a poll question here to see, where do you sit, where does your organization stand with people analytics? So I'm sure there's some of you who maybe don't know what to do yet with your data, or you're living in spreadsheets. I've seen that a lot with a lot of our customers. You're just, you're stuck in Excel and trying to make reports. And then, yeah, the other option's a bit more advanced, having dedicated resources or tools and really using people analytics to drive decision making. Let's let that run for a few minutes, but it looks like most people right now, you're living in the spreadsheet world, manually pulling data, building reports for stakeholders, kind of ad hoc. I've seen that a lot with all of our customers, and it's definitely a lot of time and effort put into such activities. And in second place is, dedicated resources and tools to help us analyze the HR data, which is great to see. There's a lot of really good tools out there, but I'm here today too to help you think about how do you take that next step to then make decisions that are data driven and will help drive your organization forward. Leave it up for a couple more seconds, but good. All right, that was really helpful for me to kind of see, but there's a lot of you in the same boat, stuck in spreadsheets. So I'll go through some ideas and some, tips and tricks for how you can get started to move away from maybe pulling everything out of spreadsheets, ad hoc, and really having a focused approach to your people analytics. So what I'll go through are a few examples. So really what we have here, I have 3 examples, and they're all based on a question that you may be looking to answer. So if you start with a question that's related to the business, it's a lot easier to kind of see a path forward to robust reporting and analytics. So if we think of the first one, where are we losing people? A couple of things you want to think about as you pose this question is you need to think about, in terms of your organization, how do you define turnover, and being able to track that with the relevant fields you need. So I've seen in a lot of different organizations where there's different groups of employees. So you might be looking at, turnover for your full-time permanent employees, but you may also have a large sector of your business that are contract workers, or maybe they're part of a bargaining unit or a union or something like that, that you track them a little bit differently. So having really solid definitions within your organization of, okay, how do we track turnover as an example for these specific groups, and how does it differ? And also think about the where. Where are we losing people? What does that mean? Where, right? Is that location? Is it different regions or departments? Those are your specific fields that you're then going to slice this data by and be able to kind of deep dive into turnover rates in different groups. So being able to have this question and then think about, what do I need to add to the number, which is, terminations, to enhance that and then be able to add to my analysis later. That's a really good starting point. For the next example here, which hiring sources are worth it? So again, you want to think through your definitions. What does worth it mean? Is that people who are hired and then stay for a very long time? Is a hiring source worth it if it brings in way more hires than anything else, right? Is that what really is the metric of success? So to get set up for analytics related to hiring sources, likely you want to track, at the TA level, what was the hiring source that brought in an employee, but then being able to link that data then to HR and outcomes there. So turnover, quality of hire, being able to tie that data together is something you likely want to think about. Whether you have the data right now to do it, or how do you get there in the future. So if your two systems, one for TA and your HRIS, maybe they're not talking to each other. Is there a way that you can combine that data in a way so that you can tell that full story in terms of the hiring source and then the outcomes that you're seeing at your business? And then for our third example here, are we making progress on DE&I? To measure progress, we often need to track things over time. So that's number one here to think about, is how are you able to see changes over time? So we often see these analytics centered around maybe recruitment processes, looking at whether all candidates are equally diverse at different stages of the pipeline. And I've seen a lot of our customers use that as a way to either prove or disprove if there's bias going on. So if you can keep things consistent, that means the best candidates are getting through regardless of any DE&I flags that have been captured in the data. Or you might be looking at, in terms of your current employees, are there different segments of the business that have a different breakdown, and seeing if that changes over time. So maybe you've implemented various programs to help certain employees, and you want to see whether or not you're seeing results. Being able to have that data tracked over time is really key to be able to understand whether or not progress is being made. So in terms of common misconceptions, I've spoken with several leaders over the years and different customers, and really a lot of times there is this sort of sense of, I'm not sure we're ready. I don't know if we have what we need to get started. And really what we always say is that keeping things simple is really the name of the game. So you can start with very basic metrics. Think, turnover, time to fill, a headcount analysis, just very basic metrics that are absolutely being captured within your ATS or HRIS. And then you can choose to later on layer on additional information to gain insights. So to me, these are things like maybe survey results coming in, or if you have some financial information about hiring sources, you can layer that in as well later on. But the idea is to get started with the small set of data that you have. And then with that, present simple visualization techniques and best practices that can help you show the data to others in an easily digestible way and get the conversation started. So a lot of times I like to say I've spent a lot of my time building dashboards, and really if you can't look at a dashboard or a visualization and immediately know what it's trying to tell you, it's not a good visual. So the graph should be able to tell the story without a lot of writing or explanation required. So I always, encourage our customers and those I'm speaking with that you can get started with things that are simple but effective. Don't be afraid of only having a few key callouts and then later on diving into something deeper. This tends to resonate better with most audiences versus getting too complicated too fast and really giving people way too much to look at in one go. So this is something we kind of recommend. Is start small and then build. You don't need to have everything perfect right away. Really, analytics are meant to evolve. So we shouldn't be seeing, the exact same views and the exact same dashboards and the exact same PowerPoints year after year after year. We would want our analytics to be effective in the way that they can communicate the data and some interesting visualizations, but we want the business and those who are viewing the analytics to then start asking a few questions, to be curious and to want more information, and to really get excited about the possibilities that you're able to offer them now that you are, taking this data and doing a little bit more with it. So I'll go through some ideas of, everyday wins that we have seen in a variety of different themes. So the obvious, everyone's trying to improve retention. DE&I progress, optimizing how people do things within their recruitment funnel, and then evolving their analytics to a point where they can understand how a program maybe that was implemented 6 months ago is having impact or cost savings now. So the way we like to look at this with our customers is really to think about things in a 3-step process. So what that process is, number one, we've already kind of covered, which is what is the business problem you're trying to solve? Get that really nice and clear, pose the right question, make sure you've got an understanding of the definitions behind it. And then step 2 is going out and finding out what data points do you need to solve this problem. So you may already have them, or you need to start collecting them. And then the other question to think through this whole time is how can you tie this business problem and the data you have to a dollar amount. And the reason I say that is because a dollar amount or a cost associated to something is going to resonate with the rest of your business. And then finally, the third step is to think about, okay, how do you want to present this and who is your audience? Depending on who you're talking to in your business, they're going to want slightly different things. So it's important to have an understanding of your audience and how you might alter or tweak different visualizations to really give them the data points that they care about quickly. So a good example of this is we often put together, dashboards specifically for HRBPs. They're looking at one specific area of the organization, and they really want to know, everything about their org that they're in charge of. On the other side, an executive, someone on your SLT, might just care about a few key things that happened this month. So simple call outs for them would be enough versus a deep dive into a particular segment of the organization. All of this to say, once you've thought through your analysis in these 3 steps, the subsequent visualizations that you'll produce, they'll be a lot more targeted, impactful, and effective. So just taking the time in advance to think through all of that is really what we recommend and what we've seen be very effective with a lot of our customers. So now I'll take you through one of our customers and how they were able to do exactly what I've been talking about and really implement PeopleInsight and People Analytics and be able to unlock a lot more from the data they already have. So I'll talk about BBioPharma. It was a mid-sized company. They had a very small HR team, so just 4 people on the team. I'm sure some of you can relate, not necessarily a ton of time to devote to analytics and especially making decisions based off of the data that you're analyzing. They were really wanting to get ahead. They wanted to make smarter, data-driven decisions and really be able to speak to leadership in a way that resonated with them. So to give you a little bit of context of sort of where they were at before we got started, is they were in that same boat as a lot of you, stuck in Excel and spreadsheets and really trying to pull together reports kind of ad hoc depending on requests that were coming in. So a lot of manual processes there to collect and analyze the data in the first place. So they were piecing things together from different data sources, several different HR systems. Like I said, a lot of times they don't talk to each other. So BBio was in the same boat. They had their ATS, their HRAS, they had some survey information, engagement scores, different things like that they were trying to connect and try to make sense of. And then really what they struggled with as well is because they were pulling all of this together in spreadsheets, they were, making their own calculations. There was a lot of room for error. So when humans are involved and we are pulling things together, a lot of times it's very easy to make a small mistake that then bubbles up eventually, or it can stay hidden for a long time and you find out, several months later that you've reported a number incorrectly. So these are all sort of very common struggles, not just for BBio, but with several of our customers. They're kind of in this place where they are struggling to really evolve due to the lack of resources and time, but also due to the manual intervention, the spreadsheets, and the completely disconnected HR systems data. So what did they do? What happened once they implemented a tool to kind of help them with these problems? So bringing all of their reporting together into a single analytics data source, it had a huge impact on the HR team's ability to focus really less on pulling reports together and more on strategic initiatives and using the data to then make a decision. So there's a quote here from Tracy, their director of people, that they now have a seat at the table. And so as I've been talking today, I've talked a lot about, being able to have your analytics and the data you're presenting resonate with your senior leadership, your executive team. And really, that's what we want. We want HR to have a seat at the table, be able to speak the same language, and have their voice be heard. So Tracy here at BBio, she says, they're able to provide data-driven recommendations faster and more accurately. So without that manual intervention, they can get to the numbers quickly, present them as people ask. And really what that's led to is a really good relationship between HR and the executive team. And there's a lot of trust and confidence in what they're presenting. Just to give a sense of, how much time is saved, 382 hours per year, and really getting to the point where the data is telling the story. So once you kind of get your data all together, you're making connections, you're removing that manual intervention, you're able to spend the time looking at the analytics, playing around with different scenarios, and then being able to present that story and craft that story for your leadership team to understand, where to go next, or to, agree to fund a program or things like that. It's about aligning the business at the end of the day. So how do you get started right now? First step I would recommend is think through 1 to 2 business problems you're trying to solve. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick a focus area for your business. Maybe it's something you've been thinking through, in 2025, this is a goal for the business, and pick something you can get started with and then later add on to that. And really take the time to outline that business problem, and then this will kind of feed the appetite within the wider organization for the questions that will come later on into the year. The next step is to look through what data you already have. So I assure you, if you've got the data, you have a story in there. You just need to do, a little bit of digging and think through the question you have asked yourself in step 1. And that should kind of help you zero in on the data that you need. So even if you don't necessarily have every single data point, as long as you have a data set to get started and then a path forward for what you would like to add to that data set going forward, that's a good place to start. You don't need to have everything to get going. Even something small will get you used to the process and will encourage those in your organization to kind of ask for more and help you evolve the analytics. Next sort of step is knowing your target audience. So if you can get some of those quick wins by picking 1 or 2 data points, doing a really good job in telling a story based on the data that you have and what you're seeing and what the business problem is and the question that you're asking, you'll build that trust within your organization and they'll trust what you're presenting. So knowing your audience, knowing what they care about and how to speak to it in a way that resonates with them. So I've mentioned, dollar amounts. For other audiences, maybe it's something a little bit different, but it will have, a huge impact on the business viewing you and the HR organization as strategic. And then finally, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. Anything's better than nothing. So if you're not sharing anything right now, it's a missed opportunity. And with each new analysis that you start doing, new dashboards that you pull together, you're making smarter moves and smarter decisions. And also, kind of with this, you can leverage the ability to do some things simultaneously. You can be working on the analysis piece for one kind of section of the business, but then also be potentially prepping the data for an analysis that you'd like to do, in 3 months' time, let's say, when you have a little bit more data to work with. So just thinking ahead and thinking about what pieces you're missing will set you up for success and for that evolution of your analytics as time goes on. Just a little bit now about PeopleInsight and what we do. Really, we build people analytics for everyone. The idea is this is purpose built for HR teams, and we pride ourselves on a 5-day setup. So once we have data from our customers, we have dashboards up and running within 5 days, which then allows our customers to very quickly be able to tell that story. Part of what is included in PeopleInsight is ongoing analyst support. So that's where my team comes in, and we really work with our customers who are typically very small HR teams. We find out what's important to you. We cater the analytics to that, and we continue to support you in asking the right questions and really helping you get that data in the right place for those continued evolving analytics. So a couple of quick reminder wrap-up points, I guess, to say. Just pick something to start. There's a wealth of knowledge in all data that you're collecting, and it's up to you to unlock it. And what's important is really thinking in a data-driven manner throughout your organization and relying on facts to make decisions. So no more gut feel or guesses, but actual numbers with the data behind it to support it. That's how we see our customers making impact. I've heard a lot of feedback of, people not having a report initially, and they work through these steps we've gone through with us, business problem, pulling together the data that's needed, sticking to a simple but powerful visualization that highlights the key things the audience cares about. They end up being viewed as someone extremely reliable, trustworthy, and someone the business can rely on to answer questions that are coming up. So it's really nice to see. And that's why I've kind of pulled together these 3 steps, because we've seen them work time and time again. So I hope you all are able to, take some of those back to your organizations and think through how you could change how you're doing things right now to really align to that framework, which will then help get analytics really going and get the business excited about seeing them. One more thing, if you're interested in keeping the conversation going in terms of PeopleInsight specifically, we do have some very good options for very little commitment. So as little as $250 a week to get our essentials package. And like I said, up and running in 5 days. With that, that's kind of the end of the brunt of my presentation, but happy to answer any questions that are coming in, or if there's any other thoughts people have, we can open the discussion. Oh, sorry, you're on. There you go.
All good. Yeah, we'll let the audience come in with some questions. We'll give everybody just a minute. I think they've got some in here, but let me just double check. First off, I want to just say thank you. I really appreciated the information. I live a lot in data, so definitely interesting to me.
Glad to hear it. Yeah. I love to work with data people. You're my people if you're in the weeds in the data, and I like to make lives simpler.
So I do see one question that came in, and that's what kind of metrics would you say make the biggest impact to start with?
That's a good question. I think the ones I've seen make an impact most quickly, I would say, is in terms of hiring sources being linked to, offer acceptance or turnover metrics. So being able to pull in that hire source, knowing where people came from, and then seeing them down the line, whether it's offer acceptance or a little bit further when it comes to turnover metrics. This is something that, because you're paying for your recruitment sources, you're paying to post on job boards and things like that, it's very easy to sort of assign a dollar amount and really quantify, was this source worth it? So I see a lot of our customers kind of starting there, really trying to understand if they're spending their recruitment budgets in the right way. Are they spending the most on the sources that bring in the most people? And then people who do stay a while, that's what they're looking to understand. So that's a fairly simple one that has real impact. And then another one I would say is cost of turnover analysis. So being able to look at um, those who are leaving and why are they leaving, and linking that to the salary of the employee, maybe also a number quantifier. So I've seen this done in a couple of different ways. Sometimes we multiply by 1.5 of an employee's salary would be their cost of turnover. So that kind of gives you a buffer to assume they've left. This is their salary plus the cost to recruit another person and train them and get them up to speed to where that person was before they left. So something as simple as multiplying by 1.5 the salary of everyone who's left, which is not a difficult calculation to do, but it has a lot of impact and resonates with a lot of different audiences to try to, if you're asking for things to try and reduce turnover, it's a great thing to pull up and be able to share and say, hey, if we could reduce turnover by 2%, we'll actually save this much money. So yeah, probably those two I've seen kind of very quickly have a nice impact and get people excited about learning more.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I know the dollars raises a lot of ears, and people definitely tune in when they hear about saving money. Um, Another question that came in is, are you seeing AI at work in analytics, and what does it look like?
Absolutely. We're seeing it in a lot of different kind of areas. It's really popping up everywhere. I mean, it's the keyword of the day, I would say. Within PeopleInsight, we do actually have AI functionality and what we're using it to do. And I'm sure this is very similar to other analytics tools that are out there. It's really helping those who are analyzing the data decide where to go searching next for insights and giving them sort of an idea of what might be upcoming based on the data that's happening. So easiest example for that would be turnover. AI is helping identify, maybe at-risk groups or trends that are happening in the data that the organization is already analyzing. It's just really calling out, hey, we're seeing in this particular department for those in management roles, there's definitely a spike happening that's inconsistent with maybe it was a flat line before. And then also the predictive capability of it, right? Being able to say like, hey, in employees who are under the age of 35, we predict there's going to be an increase in turnover over the next few months. So that kind of analysis on top of the reporting that you might already have, we're seeing come up. And then we're also seeing it come up kind of on the other end, like before customers are giving us data. There's a lot of tools on the recruitment side that are leveraging AI. So things like interview scheduling or even just deciding what job boards or advertising to do for positions. There's AI tools out there that are generating, data and recommendations for how organizations could become more efficient and really be able to do more with less. So kind of on all fronts, it's coming up everywhere, and it's something it's very exciting and interesting to see. And I think it can be an extremely useful tool, especially for people who don't necessarily have strong analytic skills to start with. It's a great tool to kind of help direct you and grow your skills and get you thinking about data points that maybe appear a little bit hidden to start with.
Wonderful. Thank you. I am seeing one more question, and this is another kind of fun one. But so, do you have any tips for what resonates most with leadership slash exec audiences?
Definitely. I think calling out key metrics, like I said, I think an executive audience, they don't have a ton of time. They're not going to read, a one-page summary of something. Even a PowerPoint presentation can be too much. So the more visual you can get and the more you can kind of call out a few key numbers. We like to do it in dashboards where we have, along the top, maybe there's 3 or 4 numbers that that executive cares about. Highlight those and then, have a couple of charts and that's it. Like a very short, sweet, to the point, one pager that they can look at, get all the information, the important information really, really quickly. And then also, the other thing that resonates well is consistency. So if they start seeing a very similar looking one pager every single month, they start to trust that and they feel that HR is aligned with their definitions and their, priorities in terms of the business.
Wonderful. Thank you. I definitely just took some notes on that one because that'll help me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what are the most common HRIS systems, on the market in your opinion? And in your opinion, what's the best?
Very good question. Yeah, we've seen several HRIS systems, but hands down, the one we see the most is Workday. That's, I think one of the main players in the market right now. And from a data perspective, what you can get out of Workday, at least to bring elsewhere, like our customers do for us, it's very robust. We've got, data records tracked in time. All the fields are there. We really like it at PeopleInsight because we're able to very quickly implement dashboards and then analyze on top of it. But we do see a lot of UKG customers as well who are very happy with UKG. And then I think the other one we see a fair amount is ADP, which if I had to pick one that doesn't have like the best output data, I would say it's ADP. But there are really, depending on your HRIS system, the data can come out. And once you've got the data, that's really where you're able to go and then do the analysis. So it just might involve a few more steps to kind of tie it all together, but not a big deal.
Noted. Thank you. It's looking like that might be it for questions. No, one more. What metrics are the hardest to measure or the least reliable?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think anything where, there's human involvement, like maybe you're ranking a quality of hire or you're ranking, a recruiter as a hiring manager, say that you receive a survey saying, hey, rate your experience with this recruiter, let me know how it went. Things like that. I think there's a lot of subjectivity to a score, for example. If you're supposed to assign someone a number from 1 to 5 versus, how good or bad they are and whatnot. There's a lot of subjectivity there that's hard to then interpret because everyone might have a little bit of a different interpretation of what they consider to be at each level. Similar vein to that is, survey data is hard because it's a lot of free text. There's a lot that's hard to get out of those responses that are coming in. So the scales and, numbers 1 to 5 are nice because they are consistent, but they don't necessarily tell the full picture. So you often have to supplement it with the qualitative text that people are writing, which ultimately is way harder to analyze. You can't really do that in a spreadsheet. You're going to want to probably leverage some sort of AI tool to summarize it for you nicely, which is something, by the way, we're doing in PeopleInsight as well. But yeah, it's really hard to get a sense of how people are really feeling.
Well, I mean, you gave me a shameless plug for the survey that we do at the end of this webinar. I mean, that's easy. So everybody, please make sure you fill that out, so we can take a look at the metrics. But questions are flying in now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so the next question that came in is, what are the biggest challenges you face in collecting or reporting HR metrics?
The biggest challenges, I would say a lot of the times it is aligning those definitions within the organization. So, you know, there before, a consistent HR analytics setup, there might have been multiple ways people were looking at different metrics. And a lot of our customers, they try to shift to, okay, this is the view we're now all going to take. And there's a little bit of challenge there in getting everyone to kind of agree and be on board with that. But yeah, I mean, everyone gets there eventually. It's just, it can be a little bit tricky to start off with.
Totally makes sense. The next one that came in is, have you encountered problems with quality, accuracy, and timeliness of data you've entered, and how do you go about resolving it?
Yeah, we see that a lot with our customers. We get the initial data set, and while it likely contains a lot of data, there's probably a lot of gaps. Even, little things like different department names. Over the course of time, things change, departments aren't updated properly, let's say, and then you've kind of got, the smorgasbord of departments and org structure that you're trying to parse through and understand. So I think it's a very normal thing that there's gaps in data. There are things that, don't necessarily align with the way you're doing things now, especially if you've been collecting data for a long time. Things change, and some of the ways we at PeopleInsight try to kind of resolve those gaps or, improve things for the future is we do things like mapping. So it's kind of like a one-time effort where you figure out, all those old department names, they map to these new departments, and you've got your file, that's your key for how that works, and you use that going forward, but it allows you to kind of get analytics further back in time than you would have without that. And other times we simply, our customers, they maybe didn't realize that there was a gap in their data. They start looking at it and they go, oh, wow, the recruiters aren't filling this out. Or, we never, filled in this field because we didn't think we needed it. And at that point, what we kind of recommend is, okay, well, the time to start is now. So while you might never have some of that information from the past, if you just pick a date and you just get going, 6 months from now, you're not going to regret that decision. You're going to now have that data to support whatever evolving analytics you need.
Yeah, once again, noted on my end. You're definitely speaking my language, so thank you.
Great to hear it.
What looks like it might be the last question, and definitely curious on this one too, is there a number of employees that's, simply too small to track? Say 10 employees, 15, org size, is there simply too small to report data meaningfully?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, the smaller your organization, it's definitely, you're not going to have as much to say. So the idea of doing a weekly report to somebody, I mean, not much is going to change in a week. But I think just even being able to look at how things change over time, even for that small population, it's going to tell a story about your organization. So for someone with, 10 or 15 employees, that's really small. It might only be a yearly exercise that you go through and kind of take a look at, okay, well, what was our turnover? How's our headcount changed? Where are we, if we posted any new jobs, how quickly were we able to fill those roles? It still provides you with information that maybe isn't easily accessible, all the time. But it's something where if you put in the effort to kind of collect it, format it, present it, you're going to be able to tell a story. And I think that's really kind of the goal, no matter the size of your organization. You're really trying to get an understanding of what is happening. And so maybe for a small organization, it's just, over a longer period of time. So you have a little bit more to say in a presentation or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, having that data now could be beneficial 5 years from now, depending on how the company changes. So might as well start getting it now, even if it is only 10 or 15.
Exactly.
All right, now what might be the last question is where do you see trends emerging that, others might not be paying attention yet?
Yeah, very good question. I think with our customers, there's a lot of focus on sort of scenario planning, being able to understand kind of those what ifs. I think in combination with AI, we're really seeing a turning point where it's not just about, what was my turnover picture like for the last 6 months? It's okay, what if I had reduced my turnover? Where would I be now? And then with the AI kind of letting us know, where might turnover spike in the next little bit, being able to kind of leverage that and use it in conversations with leadership to kind of make a plan forward, where if we're going to see a spike, if how much is that going to cost us? What will the impact be in terms of succession planning, which is another kind of trending topic we see a lot is, there's a lot of change within organizations, and being prepared for that is a really hard thing to do because you don't know what's going to happen. So kind of measuring some of those data points, tracking them, and doing, bringing in your succession planning into HR analytics is another way that people are trying to get ahead of the curve in a sense. So I think scenario planning, succession analytics, they kind of help you do that. And then I would say the other thing we're seeing a lot is a little bit more of skills analysis. So from when a candidate comes into the pipeline, tracking what skills they have, and then for those who get hired, thinking about, okay, here's the skills they came in with. Are they using those in their role? And then also, what other skills do they need if we want them to later promote or be a successor for some key role that we have? So to start tracking that from when they apply is one of those kind of data point changes we're seeing come up that I think, given a little bit of time, will prove to be very useful for our customers on the HR side and the other side of the pipeline.
Awesome.
Thank you. Well, with that, I think we have answered all of the questions that come in. So I really appreciate the knowledge. I know I've made a lot of comments on how I'm taking a lot of notes over here.
That's great. Happy to hear.
I'm sure everybody else has too. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to leave everybody with, or some contact information if they want to reach out?
Yeah, you can definitely look up PeopleInsight we're on LinkedIn or our website, peopleinsight.com. If you're interested to learn more about our offering of low-cost monthly options to get you started, get you going. I think there's a lot we can offer even for very small organizations. We have, great tailored reports, and I love to see people using their people data, right? That data is there. So even if we don't hear from you, I very much encourage you to kind of take a look at what you have so far, ask those right business questions that are aligned with the priorities of your organization, and take a stab at, one of those and see what happens. Probably the results will surprise you, and I hope you learned a little bit today. So thank you all for your time.
Awesome.
Thank you. And thank PeopleInsights for me. This was awesome. Definitely a lot of great information. And just so everybody knows, this recording will be available. So check your emails along with the credits. All that good stuff will come in the coming days. So just pay attention to your emails. But with that, we've got a little bit of time left. So everybody, if it's around your lunchtime, like it is mine, go enjoy some lunch before you got to hop into that next meeting, probably in 13 minutes.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks, everyone.